Hello and welcome back to the AGRIMINDS podcast. I'm Kacee Bohle, and today I am joined by Morgan Tweet. She is the CEO of IND Hemp and also known as the industry mama on all social media platforms. And today we're going to be talking about leadership and mindsets and how to just show up unapologetically. So, Morgan, welcome to the AGRIMINDS podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. And just big credit to Jamie Petty. She is the one that suggested that you come onto the podcast. And I had a couple of conversations with Morgan, learning a little bit more about her. And I'm like, yes, that's what we're going to be talking about. But for people who don't know you and aren't familiar with your channels or the industry that you're in, will you shine a little bit of a light on who you are? What do you do? Where are you from? All the things.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. So, like you said, I'm the CEO and co-founder of IND Hemp. We are strictly grain and fiber hemp processor. We're the largest, we like to say, hemp campus in North America since we do both grain and fiber processing. But really, what that means is we're working with local growers that are growing that industrial hemp genetics, and we're converting it into finished food, feed, and fiber products. So we're selling an ingredient or a sustainable material. And so my role is always changing. And like you mentioned at the beginning, I've sort of started showing up online in a little bit of a different capacity lately. Because our industry still has a lot of education, and I think consumers like to associate, a person with something. And so I think I've tried to just be a little bit more out there and vulnerable about what it's like to be in the industrial hemp space, what it's like to be a woman CEO. I'm also a mom. I have two little ones. And also, what a Christian's like being a leader. And, so try to juggle all the things with a little bit of grace. But I'm really excited to be on this podcast to chat with you. I think we both work in rural communities in this, fantastic community of agriculture. And there's so many things that we share. And so it's great to have like minds together.
Yes, and I'll be very transparent. I think I shared a little bit about this on probably both Greg Kruger and Melissa Nelson's episodes, which you can scroll back and find those. But both of those folks are tied to the hemp industry in some capacity. And when I was growing up in agriculture, I knew corn and soybeans. And it wasn't until like 2018, 19 timeframe when I started working with some tobacco and corn farmers down in Kentucky, Tennessee area, and they started to switch over their fields to hemp because the tobacco industry was kind of slowing down, if you will. There wasn't as much a demand for tobacco. And so they were putting hemp into those fields. And I instantly was like, I don't know if I should be showing up to these farms. Like, I like, should I be associated with them? Like, because my mindset on hemp went straight to drugs. This is bad. Like, we shouldn't be talking about this. And then I learned the difference between like CBD hemp and the oils versus the fiber and the grain and all of the different possibilities that hemp can be used for. And I had no idea. I mean, for those who are listening, can you just provide a little bit of context? What types of everyday items can grain or fiber from hemp be used for that they're probably not even aware of?
Yeah, I'll probably start with like I kind of categorically put us into two different buckets. Industrial hemp is what you just described, the grain and fiber, and I'll talk more about what applications people will find that in. But the other side I call floral hemp. And really, from an agricultural perspective, it's because we're harvesting floral matter. And that's what they convert into CBD or other cannabinoids, THC being one of those cannabinoids. But on the industrial side, like we're all over the place. It's amazing how many sectors we can touch from the grain. It's a very nutritious oilseed crop. And so think like plant-based proteins, think high refined or high value refined oils. We have a really unique omega-3 and omega-6 ratio in our fatty acid profile. And so we crush it in make that oil and then a high protein. We can also take the shell off and make and get that hemp heart. So people like are very familiar with what a hemp heart is. They put it on their granola or their cereal. And then on the flip side of the fiber side, which is basically how we repurpose the straw, Um, and we're in everything from biocomposites, so that's like your car door panels. We're in obviously clothes. Right now we're showcasing at a functional fabric show. So a lot of those things people recognize hemp in garments, but we're also in things that people don't really recognize. Wipes are a big category. So think of like your paper towels or shop towels, like you want something that's super absorbent. We're also in like animal bedding and animal care products. And so it's pretty amazing. Again, all the sectors we touch, we're continuing to find opportunities. Sometimes I say hemp's greatest strength and our greatest weakness is we can do so many things. And so as a business owner, like you want to be really focused about like what you do and what you do well. And so finding like where there's higher value is opportunity to take it to market. That's kind of what we've been navigating these last 4 or 5 years and really finding a good fit for where our materials can call home.
Oh, I love this. I don't think people in general have the knowledge or the history of like when we first started using hemp in ropes and back in the olden days when people were traveling via ship. I think that that's crazy. You have anything to comment around the mindset part around the plant?
Whenever we hire people, I sort of always say this thing is whether you like it or not, you're an advocate for hemp now. Because the first thing people are going to ask you when you say you work at a hemp company is, some sort of joke, right? Or like you getting high on work time or something like that. And so, like, I really encourage folks not to get frustrated with that. Like, there's generations of, mindset that we have to reconfigure about what they think about cannabis as a plant. And so I always see that as an opportunity to educate someone and I get more excited about it because if you're discouraged or you're like frustrated, then like you're not going to, really represent the plant well. And I think it's such a gracious plant. Like we can talk about all the amazing things it can do and the products it serves, but like what's even cooler is like what it can do in our soils and our rotation. We're a family run business and like I wasn't a hempster from the beginning. I worked in agriculture. I'm a chemical engineer and I worked for ADM for several years. And so when my dad brought me into the hemp business and sort of said, "Hey, I think there's really something here," we had a mission to bring a new rotation crop to our area. We like the rest of the United States, we're stuck in this like monoculture cycle. We don't have as many rotation crops. And I think we're like breaking through that stigma and like those availability, but like hemp not only brings valuable rotation and like cash opportunity, but like what it's doing underground, the carbon it's sequestering, just like breaking through deadpan and other things. It's such an amazing tool. And so I love to tell people like, be grateful for the opportunity that we have at this moment in time to bring a commodity back to life. Like no one else gets to say that. There's very few things like that. So that's so special and like have a resilience in your mindset that like there's 1,000 things we're going to run into. There's so many hurdles and potholes along the way, but get excited and inspired that like we get to be a part of this and like bringing this back to life. And that is a really special thing.
And I think it's so crazy that in an industry where our whole entire life and business is dedicated to tending to the soil and trying to optimize that crop and trying to get the most bang for our buck, like why wouldn't we be open minded to adding a new crop to the rotation? And
What I run into more maybe isn't the resistance of like, or like anti, like this isn't going to work, more like sitting back in the sidelines and like letting someone else figure it out. And so I've heard like so many times, like, oh yeah, like I've heard about you guys, like that's cool. Like I've sort of broken through the stigma that like we're not marijuana, we're not CBD even, but we still have this like lack of conviction to like take charge and like really play with this. And that's sort of I feel like loss on their part. They're just sitting on the sidelines and they're waiting, letting other farmers like take the risk, learn all the things. And I get like every operation has its own ability to manage risk and like what they can invest in like R&D and such. But I do believe this is like the next commodity that like at scale can really make a lot of value to rural communities across the country. The other thing that's so special about hemp is it's really can be grown very widely, like from latitudes, north to south, east to west. And so I think that I'd like to see more people get excited and like want to try like a 40-acre plot, right? Or something, dip your toes in. Like I'm not telling you to bank on hemp and sell the farm to do it, but like incorporate it into these like little trials and get it on your farm, see how you like to interact with it, work with processors. And that's like, I think coming, like more people are interested in that. So
So outside of the actual company, you also do a lot of advocating. You mentioned maybe going and like being this what was the term you said? Like an advocate. Do you go to DC and all those things too?
yeah, I'm actually on my way to DC again next week. This will be trip number 4 in the last 6 months, which is crazy to me. I hadn't been to DC since I was like 17 in high school before then. But the reality is our industry is kind of in turmoil right now in terms of like legislative language. The industrial side, to be very clear, is not in danger. Like, if anything, we have more clarity today than we have in the past. And a lot of that is because we've worked the last 5 years to try to secure this definition that like allows us to have our own identity. And so like grain and fiber is sort of carved out in this sub definition, but it still has like an overarching potential risk of like continued conflation with floral products, continued misunderstanding and risk profile. The reality is, in the last couple of years, intoxicating products have sort of flooded the market under the guise of hemp. That's where you see like gas station weed and these THC beverages, and everyone's like, "How the heck did these come about?" So, I certainly don't want to bore you with that. Like, I think there's a lot to unpack there, but basically, what it's required me to do is be present in DC and make sure like whatever language is coming about, that like industrial hemp is secure, and also like continuing to advocate within USDA and other departments and agencies of like how hemp can incorporate, right? So we're like trying to work with the Department of Defense. Can we like get hemp into like the uniform packet, right? Like maybe it's just socks or something. How do we work with Department of Transportations, and like how do we get erosion control products approved? Because if you look at any other commodity, the government has absolutely helped stand those up. You know, starting with cotton, corn and soy, like there's so many, we'll call them like subsidies at large, but like so many programs that are tailored to support these commodities and these other products. And hemp has lacked that. And so like I'm trying to show up, be a voice and like someone who's, you know, boots on the ground. I'm on the front lines. I understand what our pain points are very personally. And I think I do a good job of advocating and articulating what those needs are to our legislators and others in the agencies so that we can get the right support to really make this come to its full fruition.
I think that that requires a very interesting form of leadership to be able to voice something that majority of people in our country probably don't understand or see the importance of, but also to you're helping pave the way and also reinvigorate an industry. Like that's just fascinating. That type of leadership is so inspiring. But you've also had a level of leadership that you've had to have for your employees. Like you just mentioned a second ago, when you're bringing on somebody new to the team, trying to show them, "Hey, here's how we're advocating. Here's some things that people might say about you when you say that you work for a company like this," and automatically making assumptions about that person's character. Talk to me a little bit more about how you show up as a leader for your employees as well.
Yeah, I would say like traditionally I am not like most CEOs. For one thing, I'm young and I'm a woman, so that like already start a little bit lower. We are family funded, and so I'm very fortunate, and it's not lost on me that like I don't have to go and look for money and like work with these big VC, groups and have to like parade around and do this like big pitch deck. So that's not my skill set. That's not what it is. But what I do see that God's really blessed me with and the leadership I try to really bring to our company is like we're a people first organization. And like why we even started the business was like we wanted to make an impact in our community. We wanted to make an impact on farm. And that for me means like every interaction that I get, whether it's with an employee, whether it's customer, a farmer, like I just very intentional to try to represent us well and like how I think God wants us to show up. Um, I think that like there's, countless examples of like choosing the harder path or like being more gracious and forgiving or spending extra time with folks that like arguably I should probably be doing something more meaningful with my time, right? Like when you get to the size of business we are and like at this executive level, like you're constantly kind of auditing your time and your resources. And I just like make an intentional effort that like regardless of who it is, when it is, like I want to give someone my personal time and attention because I feel like that's what people remember. And it's not going to be like, oh, did IND Hemp have profits this year or whatever. It's they're going to remember how I interacted with them and how I treated that farmer and treated them fairly or like was even more than fair, right? And tried to give them as many opportunities to be successful as possible. So, I think every day I look for opportunities to be different and to like try to make agriculture different because like the other reason we started and like when my dad and I were talking about what we wanted this business to be, my history within ADM, like it was a fantastic way to start my career. It exposed me to so many great things in big agriculture, but it also showed me what I don't want to be like. And lacking that intimacy with like my farmer network, with my end consumers, with the community, like, I think all of those things they tried to do, but I don't think they were doing well. And so I am really just try to encourage that in our business and in our community and then in our people. We're a family, like, we take care of each other. We have a reputation in our community. We do something and, like, take that very seriously and try to be intentional with it.
Okay, so I have two questions here, and I want to say them now so I don't forget them. The first question that I have,
Yes.
I would love for you to elaborate more on how you help set yourself up for success, right? Coming into a CEO position, whether it's a male or a female listening to this podcast episode, somebody who kind of has that I don't think I'll ever be in that high of a position. Like who am I to call myself a CEO? So I'd love for you to talk more about you stepping into CEO role. What do you do to continue to grow and develop as a person, as a leader, as a business owner? But then also for somebody listening to this that is already in some sort of managerial position at a company, what advice can you give them to help them notice those areas of opportunity? Like you said, like, here's what I've learned not to be like. How can you help them show up better? So, okay, those are two questions, and we can tackle each of them separately, but I wanted to make sure I didn't forget those two. So first, let's start with how do you continue to show up for yourself? Do you have programs or books that you use to invest in? And how did you get your mindset to be like, okay, yeah, I can own this role and not having imposter
Yeah.
syndrome, if you will?
I was just about to say that. I was like, I think imposter syndrome is real. Like we all, I think, have seasons of that. So like, don't be afraid if like you're experiencing that. Like we all do. But I would say like it's not a destination, it's a journey. You have to continue to like believe in yourself because like you're gonna continue to rise. You're gonna continue to find yourself in conversations and with people where you feel like you're way underqualified. Like, how did I get here? And you just have to continue to like believe in yourself. But I always love the saying that God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And that's so important to like recognize that like you may not have the skill set, you may not have the wisdom, you may not have the money, whatever it is for your ambitions, but like have faith that like that's coming, right? And so like I do spend, time I try to listen to podcasts or read books or constantly like work on myself. I try really hard to make my fitness and like my health a priority. So like I'm a workout person in the morning. I go like 3 days a week and like my husband's great about like taking care of the kids so I can have that time. I think that's super important. Like health is something like people don't spend enough time recognizing how much it plays a role in your mental, abilities and like how you show up in the office. So like if you're not doing something for your health, like you need to start doing something right now, whether it's just more drinking more water or more steps. And then I do like find myself in prayer when I'm nervous and like or I'm going to like a big meeting or like I have a decision to make, like I'm in prayer about it. And I think that's so important for business owners, um, or even leaders. Like you don't have to be in charge of anything, but like if you're not, on your knees when you're nervous and you're scared and you're bringing that, like, then it's not, you're not going to see the fruit of those things. And like, again, I just go back to like, there's not a destination. You're never going to get to a point where you're like, okay, now I feel like the CEO. Because as soon as like you feel there, you're going to be put into a situation where like, well, okay, I definitely don't feel ready for that. And so just like give yourself some grace and like be willing to continue to work on it. And like I'm so grateful that I have an amazing team around me. Like I continue to like find in myself what are my strengths, what am I good at, like what am I naturally leaning towards, and just like dig in there. And like there are going to be things that are like gaps in your armor, and like build a team around you that fills that up. You don't have to do all the things. You don't have to be amazing at finance and like understanding P&L sheets, right? But find the people that you work well with that are mission aligned, that have the same work ethic. And at the end of the day, I think you'll continue to find that like you're an even stronger piece of armor when you're like collectively working together.
There were so many things I was like, "Yep." Like, I need to quote that because okay, so the first thing you said, like, there are gaps in your armor, right? Like, I love that we're talking about this kind of like through like a faith-based lens here because that's important to me too. And so I love how you're kind of like weaving your beliefs into your business. That's so cool. And I'm like, I don't know, it's inspiring to help me show up more sure of myself, right? Like that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with is how do we keep our belief out of our business, right? How do we show up as a Christian into the workplace? Because for so long, those have kind of been separated and maybe inappropriate to talk about. And I'm seeing it more and more and it's so inspiring. I understand, right? I understand the consequences, repercussions, or challenges that may come with that. Totally. But it feels good. It feels like the right thing, if, even if it is hard. So I just want to commend you for doing that. But then you also said something like, they can be filled. Like we're showing up to battle. We've got the armor on. Like we're as equipped as we can be in this moment. But there might be some weak areas, but you can lean on those around you. Um, to fill those. And I just like I never thought of it in that way. And it's like that's why it's important to have a support system, both personally and professionally, to lean on when you're like, I can't see the way here, or I don't understand this, or I'm frustrated with that. Like, how do I tackle this situation? And I feel like that's another like checkbox for like having a coach, right? Like we can see things that you've maybe had clouded vision towards. And it's like bringing in that outsider perspective, bringing in a cohort of something like, and that's again another reason why I do something like the AgriMinds Live program. It's like we can talk about these topics and you can learn about them, but unless you have people who are supporting you, encouraging you, and holding you accountable, it may not stick. It may not fill in those gaps as well. So the next question was around like if there's somebody listening to this that is already in a managerial position, CEO, whatever it is, business owner, and they're managing people, how can they do kind of like an evaluation with themselves? Maybe they don't know they're not leading well. What are some things that they can kind of check on to see if maybe they have room for improvement?
Well, I think one thing that's important, showing up as a Christian in leadership does not mean you show up to work and you throw a Bible at people's face and you evangelize them to death, right? Like I think people think it's a binary conversation. That's so not the case. And if you like look all over scripture, like Jesus and God just ask us to like show up well and to be a light in a dark place. That does not mean we are trying to convert Christians everywhere we go. Like, so check
Yeah.
that box. So like that's not what I'm asking folks to do to be a Christian in leadership. It's like the integrity that like when God calls us to be, and to care and love for people and to have a servant's heart. Like the best leaders are bar none the folks that serve their people, not the other way around. And the best example of that is Christ. And so I think that's the first like thing for you to do, a reflection of like, are you serving the people that work directly underneath you? And I get that, like, that's a kind of a dichotomy that's hard to wrestle with, but there are absolutely examples of that through your day that I know you'll be able to find. Like, it's as simple as, like, grabbing someone a cup of coffee that, like, maybe you didn't used to do that, or checking in on them and just like, "How was your weekend?" Like, serving them in the way that, like, you care about their home life, right? And you remember their kids' names and you ask them when they had, like, an event because they're a person, not just someone who's, like, doing something for you. So I think that's, like, but like, if I could put it into one sentence, like, you should always be asking yourself, like, are you serving your employees or your team? Um, and then I think, like, some other tangible things that you could be working on, and this is for non-believers too, like, it's just a good leader, like, have those conversations. I think that what I've continued to find helpful for me is the more clarity I can create and, like, what is the vision? What is the goal? Where are we moving? And, like, how do people know what they do every day affects that is so important. And so the last year and a half as an organization, we've, like, really doubled down on, like, what is our 1 year, 3 year, 10-year plan? And we break that down, and obviously, like, the clarity, gets a little bit foggier as you move out. But that 1 year plan, I want to be able to, like, every individual in our organization should know these 4 things I do every day go like, tie back to these 4 things. So, like, we've sort of bucketed about 10 different milestones or 10 different tasks that, articulate that 1 year plan, and everyone should know, like, their contributions on a daily level affect one of those things. And we haven't done it perfect, like, we're still refining the process, but I'm just, like, more convinced that that clarity makes me a good leader. And it also, like, separates the emotional part. Like, my husband would tell you I'm too nice, and that's, like, one of my weaknesses. And I get that, like, psychologically might seem like, a boss that's too nice, like, can't get the job done, can't hold people accountable. But I think both things can exist. But the accountability part is real. And so if I can separate accountability from, like, emotional, like, I care for somebody, I love them as a person, I want to serve them as a human being, but I also need to hold them accountable to what they bring to our organization. If I can find a way to do both things, then I think I can be successful. And honestly, I think taking care of them as a person will absolutely result in that accountability of what they're contributing. Like, they are the same thing. If you want someone to be a better performer, you need to care for them as a human first and, like, invest in that, because that'll be the foundation so that when you have, deficiencies in these, things, you can come to them from a place of, like, look, like, here's a delta here we need to close. Like, how can I help you close these things? Because I know you as the person want to be here and you want to be doing these things. So let's find a way to, like, make this difference. And I think any person that, serves in any level of an organization, like, you can have those conversations with those around you, and you can be, like, self-reflective to make sure that, like, you're serving those around you and you have a heart to, like, really see them be successful.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Ugh, hold on. I'm, like, wrapping my head around what you said. How do you know how to do this? Because didn't you say that you went for, like, chemical engineering or something? Where did you learn how to lead? How do you know how to do this?
I don't, right? But, like, by the grace of God, like, hopefully I'm showing up. I just, like, I think that we've been exposed in our life to people for a reason. And so I've had, even in my short career at ADM, like, I saw a multitude of leaders, and the ones that, like, are kind of imprinted on my memory, like, there's a few things about them, right? And it was far more about how they carried themselves and how they interacted with me. Like, even I'm this, like, lowly engineer that's, like, working the back shift, and, like, so some VP of a business unit walks through the plant door, like, everyone knows, like, this is the head honcho. Like, the ones that, like, took the time, that tried to, like, I know I'm, like, one of 30,000 employees, like, they're not gonna remember my name, but, like, tried and, like, made me feel like a person, like, those are the imprints on me. And so I always think that, like, we've been exposed to those things and we know that. And then, I think it's just being a good human, right? And I think we all have the potential within us, and we all want to be successful. We want to be known. We want to be contributors. Like, it's in our DNA to, like, add value to something. And so I think, you just see that and you see what works and you see how people respond around you. I do not do this well all the time, right? Like, I'll be the first to say, like, I definitely missed the mark. And so I think that, like, being graceful with yourself, like, you're gonna screw up, but then, like, also having that for people around you. And, like, when people let you down, like, extend forgiveness, extend grace, but, like, have the accountability. I think the other, like, one liner that I would say is, this is my personality to a T, so I recognize that this is hard for some people to do, but, like, talk about the elephant in the room, whatever it is, right? If it's compensation, if it's they're not showing up to work, if it's they're acting weird. Like, talk about whatever the elephant is. Like, the longer you let that elephant sit in the corner, the more it just like invades everything about you and your interaction with that person. So the quicker you can get to like whatever this lingering like issue is, and do it with love and kindness, right? Like, don't just be a jerk about it. But I think that I would say leading people, interacting with people, like in your marriage, like it's such a critical and useful thing. Like, and I know it's hard, but like talk about what you don't want to talk about.
Oh, that's the challenge of the century. And I think so many people will resonate with what you said around like the harmony, the balance of finding, do I want to show up as like your friend and an empathetic person, or am I going to show up as like your boss? Because a lot of the times, especially in these small rural communities, you're working with people that you see in the community. So you may have known them your entire life, whether it is a family member like a cousin or your brother, your dad, your sister, or maybe it's somebody that outside of work, like you really like as a person, right? Like I've had that struggle a lot of the times too, where it's like, this is a client of mine. However, I think if we lived closer together and we didn't have a client um, coach relationship, I think we could be best friends. But how do you show up in a professional way that's empathetic, but also like this is also business? And I do want to say things that nobody else is going to say to you because that's why you hired me. I do need to hold you accountable because I hired you to do a specific job. And if you can't show up in that way, that doesn't mean that I don't like you as a person or value you, but maybe you're just not the right person for this role. And I know a lot of my
Yep.
clients who are managers struggle with that because it's like, man, I really like this person as a human being, but they just are not getting it. Like they're not learning the processes, they're making mistakes. And it's like, I need to reprimand them to that's our company policy. However, it's like, but I know that they're a really good person. And so that's the thing I think a lot of people struggle with. And so I think you're right, just trying to find that balance is key there of like knowing, okay, this is business, but that doesn't mean I have to be a jerk to this person. Like that's the hardest thing I think we can all struggle with.
Yeah, and I think that's why like it's so important to like set a good foundation, right? Like it's harder to come back and like try to like get to know someone, right? And to like try to make that develop that rapport. So like day 1, like make an effort to like separate to identify them as the human that they are and try to make a connection. And then build off of that. But like, right person, right place is sort of the thing that I think is important. You can have somebody that is absolutely the right person. You have the mojo, like they're great, they understand, they're mission aligned, but if they're not in the right role because of aptitude or, available resources or whatever it is, that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to move that person out of your organization. Like you might be able to find a better fit for them, and sometimes you don't. But
Yeah.
having that foundation of like I'm human first, we can connect on that level, and I care for you and I want you to be successful. That's the best way to get started. If you, like, have to do that backwards and, like, you're down the road with somebody, I still think it would be received super well to, like, go to that person and be like, "Hey, I know that I might just be, like, your boss, and we don't really have a relationship together, but, like, I want you to know at the heart, like, I do care about you, and I do want
Mhm.
you to be successful. And so, like, maybe give me some feedback of how I can serve you as a person, and, like, maybe give me some feedback of how I can be a leader." And I think that vulnerability everyone receives well because like everyone's a person, everyone messes up and they do the things. And so I think being guarded and expecting you to do it right is actually what turns people off. And they like to know that you're like trying to make amends or trying to figure out a way to do better. So I think it's hard. There's not a perfect answer. And we're going to do it wrong. But I think that that's why it's so important of like what motivates you and like what is your intention. And that like drives you of how you treat people.
Okay, so for those of you who are driving, listening to this episode, go back 30 seconds and re-listen to what Morgan just said. And I think that is the most powerful thing that you have said today on this episode is I see that this person could show up differently or maybe they're not doing what I'm expecting them to do, but instead of you going and telling them, "Hey, here's what I'm noticing about you. What you just did was you flipped the script on them and you said, here's what I'm seeing. How can I serve you better? What do you need to feel supported in this role? How can I lead you better? How can I provide feedback to you? You're asking them to tell you how you can tell them what they need to do. Oh my gosh.
Right. It's the Jerry Maguire, right? Like, "Help me help you." And I can't tell you how many
Yes.
times, like,
Oh, that's so good. I mean, honestly, that's like the mic drop moment on leadership and how to just show up well for not only serving other people, but that serves you well too, because you can sleep at night knowing that you've tried everything that you could, that you were respectful and you're helping develop other people while also staying true to your values and getting work done. I've loved this conversation, and I'm so thankful that you've taken the time to join the AgriMinds podcast. And I've been loving your content lately. I've been seeing you showing up in a new way. And for those who haven't connected with you yet, where can they find you?
Yeah, no, I super appreciate it. This has been fun conversation. I don't get to really unpack this side of me and my business. I hope I can do that more because I think it's so important. Um, I definitely like give me a follow on socials, right? Like I think at the end of the day, like I want to see hemp in like all around us, right? Like I want it to be in your car, I want it to be in your house, I want it to be in your clothes. And the only way that I'm gonna make that happen, like as a sector, is for people to like break down like what hemp is. And so I try really hard to just like educate, to kind of be funny and inspiring, like, show a little bit of my life because I do think like that helps people understand. Like at the end of the day, I'm just a mom who's like trying to figure this out and juggle all the things. And I have a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year old and a husband that like, is ranching and I'm new to ranching. Like I have no idea what I'm doing out there. My mother-in-law like would tell you that. um, and so I think that's a fun way for me to show up and like to communicate with people. Um, and then also like, if you're interested, if you have a business or if you have a way that you think hemp might come into your category, like give us a shout, like send us an email. You can look us up indhemp.com, like send us a shout out there. I try really hard to have an open door policy and like give my time to anybody and everybody. You never know who God's going to put across your path. And so like I just try to be very open that like I try to take all the calls. Like we get requests all the time of like, "Hey, I want to set this up in Africa. Or I want to do something like you're doing over here. Like, can you tell me what to do?" And so like I never hold back. I want here's my playbook. I'll tell you all the things we did wrong and all the money we spent and because I think that like if we want to see hemp succeed, like we all have to contribute to that. And like the saying of a rising tide lifts all ships, we try really hard to embody that. And so that's awkward, it's vulnerable, it's taken practice. I will say, like me personally and my employees, like we've had almost every competitor that's in North America in our doors. We've walked them hand in hand through our line. And that was awkward. That was like something we had to coach in our team that like we are going to do this. We are going to give them like full access to us. Um, and I think that's like an example of like how I'm trying to lead our business different than like how the world tells me how to lead my business. Because like the pie in the sky of what hemp can be is huge. Like I just could go on and on about that. And so like the little sliver that I have right now, like I want it to just be a much bigger pie. And like I'm not going to be doing that by like being guarded and being selfish with our resources and what we've learned. So yeah, I'd love for folks to, get to know about hemp, to get to know about IND Hemp, Industry Mama, like all of the ways. Just, I welcome you into this little world. And hopefully I can meet you wherever you're at and whatever you're inspired by or enjoy, listening to.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And honestly, I've been getting messages more recently that the content and these types of conversations are what people want to hear more of. And so if you loved this podcast, if you loved this conversation today, make sure that you rate the AgriMinds podcast, share it with a friend who you think would benefit from hearing from Morgan and her story. So thanks again, Morgan, for jumping on, and we'll talk to you soon.